Right. So Seth Rogen is upset about how Donald Trump's administration is treating the science. And I find out about this from an event that is the actual explanation on why the science is being treated the way it is. Now, for those of you who don't study history, I will tell you how the science existed in medieval Europe in the year of the Lord 1300, when the church reigned supreme. You see, the church wasn't the same church we have today. It wasn't just about religion and philosophy. It was actually a political institution. It worked hand in hand with the kings. It justified morally why the kings do what they do to the peasants. And so the church was also the coveter of knowledge, in the sense that the only way you could learn how to read books, the only way that you could get education in a medieval society was through the clergy. And in order to make sure that no one steps on their turf, they would only read the Bible in Latin. They would only write the books in Latin. In other words, it's not like a peasant wouldn't be able to learn how to read and write. Because if you think about it, like, children know how to read and write. It's not a really difficult skill. And while it's true that a book was extremely expensive at the time, they didn't know how to make paper the way we know. They used vellum, which was very expensive. Peasants couldn't buy it. They could still write in sand. They could still have a table with wax where they could write. They could still get like a stone with chalk and write on the ground. So there were ways. But the reason that they did it is because the church would gatekeep it by Latin. Like, imagine you're an English peasant, and all of a sudden the Bible is written in Latin. Like, even if you have access to one, you wouldn't be able to read it. And even if you go to church, you don't know anything about the Bible because the priest doesn't preach in English. He preaches in Latin. And so, yeah, like, for many medieval peasants, they had no idea about Jesus. The only time they would learn is by looking at the beautiful pictures that were on the glass of the church. That's why they had this weird interpretation of heaven and hell, where hell like has demons with pitchforks, because that's where they would get it from. And so, circling back to the science, right? Like how exactly was the world viewed? Well, the world was viewed that the king is operating under the wisdom of the church, like he is God's gift to earth. He is sent by God in order to rule the country. And he would set his policies based on Christian morality. In other words, he would set his policy based on what the priests would tell him. And usually, it wasn't like that. Usually, like, the priest would have to figure out ways to make so that the moral works with the king's ambitions. So if the king decided to tax the ever-living shit out of you, well, the priest would come up and say, well, suffering is godly. This is God's test. We have to endure it, right? Like, he would be on the side of the king. And there was no way for people to contradict that because they couldn't read. And so, let's look at how the world works today. You have the science. Well, what is the science? Well, the science is not all scientists. It's not even the scientific method. It's the institutions. You have institutions, and those institutions have representatives. And so those representatives, they don't speak in Latin, but they may as well, because if you look at a scientific paper on environmentalism or on, like Moderna or whatever, it may as well be Latin. Most people don't understand it. But the interesting thing is that sets policies. Like, it's not the scientists trying to convince people that this is right or not. It's like, no, they go directly to the government and they will say, yeah, okay, COVID is happening, fuck your freedoms. What I want you to do is to lock down people's private businesses, let the big businesses still operate, let Hollywood still operate, let the mainstream media still operate, but shut down the mom and pop stores. And on top of that, force people to stay in their doors, apply a huge censorship apparatus on the internet, no debate. Anyone that's against us is against the science. They get banned. And if you have like civil rights movements, if you have BLM and shit, those can go out. But make sure they mask so that the CCTV cameras don't identify who sets fire to buildings and shit. And that's the science. And it ends up with Dr. Fauci claiming in front of the world several times that, well, he is the science. Like, he is the avatar. He is the Pope. So like, compare this to the medieval setting. I'm not saying it's a bad system. I'm saying it's an excellent system. I mean, it withstood the test of time. That's why they're using it, because it works. Unfortunately, just like the medieval system cracked, this one cracks as well. People lose faith. People lose faith in the institutions. People lose faith in the politicians. And most importantly, people stop caring about the science. Like, this to me, this show where you give awards to scientists and whatnot, this is hubris. Like, this is pretty much like Easter worshipping the Christian version, right? Like, you have like this massive celebration where everyone goes and they partake into the religious thing. But this is not religious. This is secular. But it fills the same role. Like, people go together in order to celebrate the science. And how do they celebrate? Like, are they showing brand new inventions? Are they, like back in the day when they would show mustard gas and they'll be like, wow, this is a very effective weapon on the battlefield, but look, it also grows crops. All of a sudden, we're starting to solve world hunger. This is the nuclear weapon. It's self-explanatory. Like back in the day, they would be like, this is penicillin. Are they doing this at this award show? Are they showing like revolutionary inventions that baffles the mind and it speaks for themselves? Are they applying the scientific method? Are they educating the public? No, it's filled with Hollywood actors. It's filled with the mainstream media. And it's filled with the same institutions that lost credibility. And this is literally the problem. This is why you get Donald Trump. You can be as much as upset as you want, but you can't pretend that Donald Trump just walked out from the ether and there's no build-up to him. You can't pretend that the pandemic didn't happen. You can't pretend that you're not censoring people on the internet. Albert Einstein didn't censor anyone. None of the important scientists of the world had to censor people in order for them to publish their inventions. He is not upset about the science. He's upset about politics. He's upset that as a priest, the king doesn't listen to him anymore. Like, he's a bishop, he's important, and he's not talking about it as a religious person. He's talking about it as a political institution. I see a lot of Christians getting upset when I make this comparison, and they think that I'm talking about the same church as today because they don't understand that it was an entirely different institution back then. It was political oriented. It had political ambitions. It had expansionist ambitions. It wasn't like only about saving souls, which was part of the thing. But like, they also cared about optics. They also cared about PR. They also, did performative work. They had corrupt bishops. They had corrupt priests that tried to get themselves wealthy, well-fed, right? If you apply that mentality to today's the science, well, all of a sudden you notice a lot of similarities. Quite shocking. And so this is why RFK has been born. RFK has been born because people are sick and tired of getting censored. When you censor someone, they will automatically assume that you're lying to them. I mean, that's just basic 101 human logic. If you censor anyone, even if it's for the right reasons, they will assume, even if it's wrong or not, they will assume that you're doing it because you know that they're in the right and you're in the wrong. Anyway, right, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.